Hi, Phyllis here from southernfrugal.com. We're ready to make a butterscotch pie. Now this is going to be a very rich pie and it deserves a very rich crust. So we're going to make a butter crust today. And we're going to do that first. Now I've preheated my oven to 400 degrees and we're ready to get started. I've got 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour in my bowl. I'm going to add 1 stick of butter, which is equal to 1/2 cup. And before I put that in, I'm going to cut it up in little bitty squares to make life easier. And once you're working with a butter crust, you have to do it pretty fast because the butter will start getting too soft. So we're just going to cut that butter up. That ought to be good enough right there. Cut it up in little squares. Go ahead and put that in. And next, we're going to add 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Now the butter is salted butter. And we're going to start cutting that butter in. I'm just using a pastry cutter. I'm going to do that really quick. There go my dogs. They're just barking and barking and barking. Because that's what happens when I start making a video. Alright, now we don't want this too, we don't want the butter to be in too small pieces. But definitely smaller than what they were when we cut them. Yeah, so the pie is going to be very rich, and it's going to have a rich butter crust to it. Alright, let's see if this is enough here. Now I tried doing this in my mixer, and I really didn't like the way it turned out. I made a crust a couple of days ago, and I didn't really like it that way, so I decided I would cut this in. Now you're going to need 1 egg yolk, and you want to save that egg white because we're going to make a meringue to go on top of the pie. Alright, I think this is about got it. Yeah, that's about got it. I think all the big chunks are cut up now, for the most part. There's a big one there. Alright. Now what we're going to do is add about 3 tablespoons of ice water to this egg yolk. We'll start out with 3 tablespoons. Well, actually, why don't we just go ahead and do 4. And if we need more, we'll add a little more, but we'll just start out with 4 tablespoons. You want to beat that egg into that cold water. And then we're just going to dump it right down in there. And then just mix it all around until that crust comes together. You want to do this very quickly. Alright, we're going to need another tablespoon. Sprinkle that in, because it should come together right away. And you never know about the flour. That's why the exact measurements on the water aren't always the same, because some flours are just, different than others. And by the way, using the 1.5 cups of flour, I don't sift the flour before I measure it when I make a pie crust. I just dip it right out of the bag. I'm going to need 1 more. Maybe 2 more. Alright, now let's see if we can use our hands and get this together. It's going to need just a touch more, maybe another teaspoon. Just a little bit. Now we're going to make a 10-inch pie crust because this is a big pie. Alright, so you want to gather it all up. Alright, I think it's together now. Now what we're going to do is make sort of a little disc. Make it a little easier to roll it out. Move my water out of the way. So what did that end up taking? I don't know, 5 or 6 tablespoons. Alright, so I'm going to sprinkle a little flour on my board here. Now I do this on my stove because it's a cooktop and it's really a good hard flat surface. My table is kind of an antique table over there, and it's made out of cedar, and it's not a good place to roll out a pie crust. Sprinkle a little flour on that, just a little bit. Now normally I don't use flour on the crust if I'm using Crisco, but since we're using butter, alright, get my hands wiped off just a little bit. Alright, so now we're going to put some plastic wrap over this. And all this is to make it easier to clean up, and also it makes it a lot easier to put it in the pie plate. Alright, so we're going to start rolling from the center and turn it around and roll that way. And you can see I've got this little plastic thing I got from Walmart, and I know that my 10-inch crust is going to be that little circle right there. So it shouldn't take long to get this rolled out. I guess this is going to be a long video, but I want to show y'all at least how I make a butter crust. If it doesn't come out round the way you want it, you can always shave some off one side and put it on the other. Alright, about got it. I'm going to shave a little off one side there. Put it right there. Put it right in there. Just kind of pinch it together. That'll work. There we go. So I think we're just about there now. And what I like to do is go ahead and lift my paper a little bit, my plastic wrap, and kind of, because I really like to use all of the crust. You know, I don't want to really throw any away because the butter crust is exceptionally good. Alright, I'm going to roll that back out. Alright, now for the pan. Now I'm going to bake this 400 degrees in a Pyrex 10-inch pie plate. And here's what I do, because I'm going to put some of these dried beans in it to make sure the crust stays the way it's supposed to stay. So I just turn the pie plate upside down, put a piece of aluminum foil on it, and then I put, get it in the shape of the pie plate, and then I put a little bit of Crisco on that and around the edges. And the reason I do that is because I've actually made pies, where I'm making the cooked crust and had it stick to the tin foil. You could also use spray on it. Also, in the pie plate, I put just a little bit of Crisco in the bottom of it, and that's just to make sure when we cut the pie, it all comes out clean. All right, so we're ready to put this on the plate now. So what I'm going to do is take off that top layer of plastic wrap first. And then I'm going to flip it into the pie plate. Now you don't get a whole lot of chances to get this right, so you have to kind of try to get it right the first time. Let's see if that looks right. And you don't want to stretch your crust if you can help it. I need to pull it over a little bit. Looks about right. And don't worry about any of the flour there, because that's not going to hurt anything. Alright, so now I want to position it on the bottom of the pie plate. See if it's somewhat even around everywhere. Let me get my little brush and brush some of that flour around. Okay, so now we're just going to pinch up the sides, and I'm really not going to cut any off of it. And just pinch it up like that. I'm just taking my two fingers and pinching it, making a little hump there. And don't worry about it not being perfect, because when it's not perfect, it tells everybody that it's homemade. Now that butter's already gotten pretty soft, so we want to really get it done fast. Alright, now I'll just push it in just a little bit. Alright, there it is. So I can't brush some of that flour out. Okay, so there it is. There's what it looks like. Now normally I don't really put forks in the crust unless I know for sure there's some air pockets, and in this particular case there were. So I'm going to just poke around with the fork and then just mash those out. And then I just push those little fork holes back together, because I don't want my pie crust, my pie filling, seeping into the bottom of the pie pan. Alright, we're ready. Alright, so now you see the reason for doing the tinfoil like that ahead of time. Because the butter crust is very delicate, and the tinfoil will get pushed into it if you're not careful. Alright, now we're going to dump about half these beans in to hold the crust down. And these are just beans that I've used over and over and over for the same purpose. So I like to push the beans up against the side, try to keep that all together there. Alright, I think we've got it. Now we're going to go ahead and bake this for 20 minutes with these beans all in there in the tin foil. And then I'm going to open the oven and take the tin foil and the beans out, and probably bake it maybe another 5 or 10 minutes just till it gets golden brown. Alright, we'll be back. Alright, the pie crust is all done now. Now I cooked it 20 minutes at 400 degrees with the beans in it, and then I took it out and took the beans out in the aluminum foil, and then I cooked it for another 10 minutes at about 375. And there's what it looks like. It smells very buttery. All right, so we're ready to make the filling now. So we're going to need 1.5 cups of dark brown sugar. So let me just measure that out in the pot. You'll need a little 2-quart pot. And just mash that down. So there's 1 cup. And there's a 1/2 cup. All right. Next thing we need is 1/2 cup of flour. I know that sounds like a lot, but you're going to definitely need it. You want to dump that in with the sugar. Just start mixing it around, because that sugar will break up any lumps in the flour. I just use a whisk on this to do this. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and turn my burner on medium. And I'm going to add, if I can find it, 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Just mix that around. And then we're going to add 3 cups of whole milk. So there's 1 cup. And then this is a 2-cup measure cup. So there's the 2 cups. All right. So you've got a total of 1.5 cups of brown sugar, 1/2 cup of all-purpose flour, and then 3 cups of whole milk. Now, here's the thing that you have to watch with making this filling. You do not want it to boil, because if it does, you stand a chance on having your milk curdle, and that will not be pretty. Alright, so we're going to add 4 egg yolks, but we're going to wait till this gets hot and gets really thick. We're also going to add some butter and a vanilla extract, but we're going to wait till the end to do that. Alright, so this is going to probably take probably 10 minutes or so. So we'll be back, and you'll need to keep stirring it until it thickens. And remember, you do not want it to boil. Don't let it start bubbling. Alright, we'll be back. Okay, it takes about 15 minutes on medium heat for this to start getting thick. Now, you do not want it to boil. I can't emphasize that enough. But you want it to get very hot just before boiling. Alright, so it's plenty thick now. Now we're going to temper the egg yolks that we're going to put in here. So I'm going to slip it off the burner. And here, I'll move up so y'all can see. And I'm going to just dip out a cup of, or 1/2 cup of this. I've already beaten my 4 egg yolks, and I'm going to just slowly beat this liquid, this more pudding-like, into these egg yolks to temper them, because I don't want them to, turn into scrambled eggs in the pot. Alright, so that ought to do it right there. Now we're going to put the pot back on the burner, and I'm going to pour in the eggs that have been tempered and just keep beating it with your whisk. I want to make sure I get all of those egg yolks in, and that was 4 large egg yolks. Now usually I use the Eggland Best Extra Large, and if you do that, you'd need to, I don't know, you're gonna have more egg in your pudding, but that's probably okay. But I would just try to get the large eggs. Alright, so now we're going to leave this back on the burner and just keep stirring it because of the milk and the, oops, y'all couldn't see, Because of the milk and the brown sugar, this will definitely stick to the bottom of the pot. So you do have to stir it the whole time. And this is a lot of trouble, but in the end, it will be worth it. This makes a delicious pie. So all we're doing now is cooking the egg yolks. But again, I do not want it to boil. If I see a bubble coming up, then I'm going to have to move it off the burner for a little while. Or either I can just turn my burner down. Oops, see, like that. You don't want that to happen. So just pull it off the burner for just a second here. Put it back on. I've turned my burner down to medium-low. It doesn't take the egg yolks maybe a minute or less to cook. Now you notice there are no lumps, and the reason there are no lumps is because I mixed the flour and the sugar together in the beginning and let the crystals in the sugar break up any lumps in the flour. All right, we pretty well got it. Now I think we've maybe been cooking it, I don't know, has it been a minute? Maybe. So what we're doing is keeping this mixture just below the boiling point. Yeah, so no more bubbles coming up. Okay, all right, so we would call this pudding done at this point. And what I'm going to do, I did see a bubble there. Let me scoot this off. What we're going to do now is I'm going to put a lid on this and put it down in my sink in a pan of cold water, or in a sink full of cold water, you know, up to about right there, and let it cool down a whole bunch, and then we'll be back. All right, we were about to forget a very important step. We're going to put 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract in this pudding. There's 1, 2. And we're going to add 3 tablespoons of butter. Now I've got my heat off on the burner, but it is still warm. So we're just going to whisk this all together. And then we're going to put it down in the sink with some cold water and see if we can't get it cooled pretty quick. And then after this cools, we're going to be ready to make our meringue. And what I do while it's cooling, I go ahead and put the lid on it, but you know, every 5 minutes or so, I come back in with the whisk and beat it again, just so it doesn't form any kind of skim on the top. Or hopefully it doesn't, let's put it that way. Alright, I think that butter and vanilla are pretty well incorporated now. Alright, so now we're ready to put it in the sink. Put a lid on it, and in the sink it goes. So we'll be back in just a little while. Alright, we are ready to put the pudding into the pie shell. Now, I don't think I've got on any lights in here other than this one and the ones under the counter, but anyway, what we're going to do is go ahead and dump this pie filling in the shell. Now, I let it cool in the sink for about 30 minutes. It's still a little warm, but that's fine. So we're going to dump it in now. Gently spread that out. And we'll just push that to the side and we're ready to fix our meringue. So I'm going to move y'all over to the other side, so we'll be right back. Alright, we're ready to fix the meringue, and this is the main reason I got this Oster mixer, is to make meringue. So it can beat the egg whites. So I've got 4 large egg whites, and they're at room temperature. Cut because they beat much better if you have them at room temperature. And I'm going to go ahead and put in the cream of tartar. And I put in a heaping, that's really a half of a teaspoon cream of tartar. And I'm going to end up putting in a little scant half cup of sugar. Alright, so let's plug this little mixer in and get it going. And I'll cut it off once it starts beating because it will be a little noisy. Alright, so we're going to start it out on low and increase the speed all the way up to 12. Alright, I'm going to add my sugar now. I've turned the mixer down. I'm just adding it slowly. And I'm going to go ahead and add a half a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Just about a half a teaspoon. And I'm going to add just a couple of drops of almond extract. Just a couple of little drops. Just like that. A little teeny bit. Just makes the meringue taste better, I think. Alright, I'm going to turn it back up now. And, well, I'll let y'all hear it. It makes a lot of noise. Okay, so with meringue, you want to make sure that you don't feel any sugar crystals in it. And I still feel some, so we're going to mix it a little bit longer. Alright, we'll be back. Alright, well, I'm happy with the results. There they are. It did take longer than it does when I use the hand mixer. And I would have never guessed that, but it definitely did. But I think it did a more thorough job than my hand mixer does. Now I'm using the metal spoon rather than a spatula because I noticed the instructions in the manual that came with this said to use a rubber spatula. But guess what? In home economics, we learned that if you use a rubber spatula, the chances are it's got a little grease on it, and it's going to start deflating your meringue. Alright, we're just going to spread this out and get it connected to the pie crust. I must say, it's definitely a better texture than I get with my hand mixer, but it did take longer. So I'm just attaching it to the sides of the crust here. And try to make sure there are no air bubbles in there. Now we're going to put this in the oven at 375 degrees, and it's probably going to take 15 to 20 minutes to get this meringue browned. Or, you know, just lightly browned. We don't want it dark brown. Yeah, I'll have to say that it made the meringue higher than I get when I make the meringue with the hand mixer. So I'm happy with that. I just wasn't, I didn't know that it was going to take longer. It took a good 6 minutes. Of course, I just went in and took a break. And I don't like to do all the peaks on the meringue because they get too dark, I think. I like to just do gentle little swirls. Alright, we're going to put this in the oven, and we'll be back when the meringue gets all done. Just make sure that it's all connected to the sides of the crust. And even then, sometimes it will pull loose from the crust. Alright, there we go. It's going in the oven. We'll see y'all in a few minutes. Alright, here's the pie all done. Now I'm not going to cut it until it gets completely cool. So what we'll end up doing is leave it on the counter for probably a good hour. Then I'll put it in the refrigerator, and so we really won't be having any of this until really tonight. Because if you cut it when it's still warm, the filling's going to run. Alright, so there's what it looks like, and I'll have to tell you I'm happy with the mixer. It did take longer to make the meringue. I think it took about 6 minutes, but I did like the end result. Yeah. Alright, y'all, we will see you next time.